You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's March the 18th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Green Irene. Did you see something?
Good morning.
Yes, that was done quickly.
Yes, I'm not that anonymous face anymore.
No. Yeah, no mysterious person with the question mark. And I found some time in order to be able to get that changed over and get your picture included.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
There we go.
I feel a part of the team. I've always felt a part of the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's good. We got a hell of a lineup today.
We
kind
sure
of all
do.
over the place, eh?
Yeah, we're all over the place. Psychedelics as well as cannabis news. News that includes the vice president ripping into the USA's cannabis policies, right up to a big hash event going on in Morocco.
How cool is that, right?
I know. I'm looking forward to that one. So, what do you say?
I say we get at it. Yes.
All right. Here we go. First story from Politico. Headline says Vice President criticizes federal cannabis restrictions during White House weed event.
Interesting. Vice President Kamala Harris called the current classification of marijuana under federal law absurd during a White House event on Friday. And said she is looking forward to seeing what the Drug Enforcement Administration decides about moving it to a different category. I'm sure DEA is working as quickly as possible and will continue to do so. And we look forward to the product of their work, Harris said at the beginning of a roundtable discussion on cannabis policy with Governor Andy Beshear. A handful of people who received pardons from President Joe Biden for low-level cannabis offenses and rapper Fat Joe.
The vice president's comments came as anticipation builds for the DEA to release its final decision on the Department of Health and Human Services recommendation to move marijuana or cannabis with more than 0.3% THC to a less restrictive schedule under the Controlled Substances Act. Cannabis is currently classified as a Schedule I narcotic, the same as LSD and heroin, which means it's deemed to have no acceptable medical uses and a high propensity of abuse. The White House event is the latest sign that the Biden administration plans to tout its efforts to overhaul federal cannabis policy ahead of the presidential election. Biden also cited his moves to pardon federal marijuana offenders and loosen federal weed restrictions during last week's State of the Union address. A whopping 70% of Americans back cannabis legalization, and that position is particularly popular with young voters, a crucial demographic that Biden is struggling to maintain support from.
Well, Biden issued 2 executive orders in October of 22, pardoning people with certain non-violent federal cannabis offenses and instructing HHS to assess if cannabis should be reclassified within the federal list of controlled substances. In late 2023, HHS sent a letter to the Department of Justice recommending that cannabis be moved to a less restrictive category. But the nation is still waiting the DOJ's final decision. Biden expanded his pardon declaration in December, allowing more people to receive relief, a population that Harris on Friday numbered in the tens of thousands.
Well, we're hearing some talk, a little bit here and there coming up in drips and drabs. Let's hope that that talk turns into something
concrete. Yeah.
Concrete. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Right. Excuse me for 2 seconds. Computer off.
Sure. Oh. Computer's giving you a hard time, eh?
Yes. I was watching Star Trek this morning.
It's like kids. Sometimes they just never know how to stop. All right. On to our next story of the day. This one comes to us from StratCan. Headline says that Manitoba's LGCA plans to review province's cannabis consumption ban.
This was an interesting headline to me. Manitoba's Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Authority was planning a review of the province's ban on consuming cannabis in public this year, but they paused the process as it awaits direction from the new NDP government. So it was a 14-page briefing first reported by CBC that said that the provincial cannabis regulator had planned to begin a review of the possibility of cannabis consumption sites in Manitoba, including looking at the current rules that do not allow cannabis to be consumed in public in Manitoba in any form.
I can see that with the NDP government, things may just open up a little bit more on that end of things.
I
No.
hope so, because while I was
Yeah.
in Manitoba, I didn't realize you couldn't consume publicly, and I did.
Well, yeah, like you can't even walk down the street and smoking a joint, even though you're the only one there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Technically, you're still breaking the law.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could have been in a lot of trouble, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. The
Know the
briefing
laws of
stated,
where you are.
yeah, the briefing stated that the LGCA has committed to a full and in-depth review of cannabis consumption sites, including industry demand, legal permissibility, and potential regulatory implications. The LGCA plans to revisit its analysis in early 2024, beginning with a review of the legislation and regulatory framework, and then moving to stakeholders' consultations.
Very good. That plan
Mhm.
was reportedly paused, however, as the agency awaits for direction from the newly formed government. The Manitoba NDP formed government in October of 2023, and the province's cannabis rules were put in place by the previous progressive conservative government. So the LGCA also reportedly noted in its briefing that public consultations in 2021 and 2022 did not indicate either strong support or opposition for cannabis consumption sites in Manitoba. I find that hard to believe.
Really? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I find that
Wow.
hard to believe because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
we reported on on some of that.
Yeah.
But
Manitoba is one of several provinces that have banned the public use of cannabis. Cannabis consumption is legal in public in BC, Ontario, and some parts of Alberta. Other provinces and territories have also banned it outright. BC recently announced changes to its rules allowing cannabis consumption in certain patio spaces.
yeah. So this restriction means that the only place to consume cannabis is on private property or in someone's private residence. Now, some landlords do not allow cannabis consumption. This ban can mean some residents have little to no ability to actually consume cannabis. The ban on cannabis consumption is just one of the province's rules put in place by the previous conservative government that has been challenged by activists and advocates in the province.
Hey, yeah, like, including that, they're not allowed to grow their 4 plants. Wonder if that's going to change.
Oh, fingers crossed for
Yeah,
Manitobans.
yeah, Manitoba. There you go. Manitoba is one of 2 provinces that ban residents from growing cannabis at home, along with Quebec. Manitoba NDP and their leader, now Premier Wab Canoe, said that they did not support the ban previous to forming the government in last fall's election. So you can see a change coming there.
Yes.
Yeah. The court rejected an attempt to appeal the ban in 2023, but a group challenging that ban filed an appeal on the March the 1st against that decision. Several requests for comments on the party's stance on homegrown bans were unanswered, but sources close to the file tell StratCan that an announcement may come from the province on the matter of homegrown cannabis in the coming weeks. More on
Fingers are
this.
crossed for our Manitobian neighbors.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Sure. It looks like there's going to be some changes going on there for sure. And good changes, bringing them back to reality. Like, this is just crazy banning them from doing something that we're allowed to do federally. It just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So
Well, if you really want to confuse something, give it to the government.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Next story. For the marijuana moment, Congressional Committee will take up medical marijuana and psychedelics bills for veterans at a hearing next week. All right.
This again was exciting. I'd like to see this Canadian side as well go. But a U.S. House subcommittee focused on health issues for military veterans has scheduled a hearing for next week where members will consider 2 GOP-led bills concerning medical cannabis and psychedelics. The House Veterans Affairs Health Subcommittee will meet on March 21st to discuss the drug policy measures among several other veterans-focused proposals. The panel made history last November by holding a first-ever congressional hearing focused on psychedelics-assisted therapy for veterans.
One of the bills that's on the agenda, sponsored by the subcommittee chair, Rep. Marinette Miller Meeks, is titled the Veterans Cannabis Analysis, Research and Effectiveness Act. In other words, the CARE Act. It would require the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs to conduct and support research relating to the efficacy and safety of forms of cannabis for chronic pain, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and other conditions that the Secretary determines appropriate.
The legislation specifies that the VA studies must involve plants and extracts, at least 3 varieties of cannabis with different concentrations of THC and CBD, and varying methods of cannabis delivery, including topical applications, combustible and non-combustible inhalation and ingestion. The VA would first have to submit a research plan to House and Senate Veterans Affairs committees and make any requests to support the studies. Over the course of 5 years after the bill is enacted, VA would need to send annual reports on its progress to the panels.
The measure is identical to an earlier measure Miller Meeks sponsored last Congress. On the Senate side, a committee approved a separate bill last February to promote research into the therapeutic effects of cannabis for military veterans with certain conditions. However, Senate Republicans blocked a procedural motion to advance it to the floor.
Oh, just crazy, eh?
Yeah.
The other bill go ahead, sorry.
The other bill that's been taken up in the House subcommittee next week, sponsored by Rep. Derek Van Orden, would instruct VA to notify Congress if any psychedelics are added to its formulary of covered prescription drugs.
Right. It states that the VA must report to Congress on the addition of any psychedelic medicines to its formulary within 180 days of their federal approval by Food and Drug Administration. The report would need to include the determination of the Secretary whether to include such drug in the formulary of the department, as well as the justification of the Secretary for such determination, the bill text says.
Currently, there are no psychedelic drugs that are federally approved to prescribe as medicine, but that could change soon, as FDA recently agreed to review a new drug application for MDMA-assisted therapy on an expedited basis. The agency has also designated psilocybin and more recently an LSD-like compound as breakthrough therapies.
Yeah. Where are we here? Sorry, I almost lost it there. In January, VA separately issued a request for applications to conduct in-depth research on the use of psychedelics to treat PTSD and depression. Van Orden, who filed the psychedelics bill, is also a co-sponsor of a bipartisan measure to provide funding to the Department of Defense to conduct clinical trials into the therapeutic potential of certain psychedelics for active duty military members. That reform was signed into law by President Joe Biden under an amendment attached to the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act.
Oh, good. Meanwhile, in a floor speech last week, Miller Meeks, the subcommittee chair, talked about the need to support novel forms of research to unlock the potential of psychedelics and cannabis for the treatment of conditions like PTSD that commonly afflict veterans. She also touted first ever FDA guidance on psychedelic research that she separately requested in a bill filed last year alongside Reps Dan Crenshaw and Ro Khanna.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like, people they're saying we've got to do this, and they've just got a lot of red tape to get through. I mean, you got to get it. There's a lot of paperwork to be done here. And the first set of paperwork has to pass through this person, then that person has that much more paperwork to file up to go along with it, until you end up with a book about this thick that ends up on somebody's desk who says, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
You guys have got to get louder and stinkier, get out there and be heard.
It's just like the Safe Bank Act that turned into the Safer Bank Act, and it gets approved in one location, but the other location doesn't approve it, or they won't bring it up, and it's just nonstop. So just get it done. Come on.
Get out of the bullshit, the tangled up bullshit.
Exactly.
Red tape. Yeah.
All right. On to the next story. Headline from MJ Biz Daily. Canada's finance minister warned about cannabis industry financial distress.
Interesting. Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland was warned last fall about a systemic financial distress facing the country's cannabis producers, including the skyrocketing tax debt and widespread insolvencies. The calamities facing the industry were spelled out in briefing materials that obtained through an access to information request and shared with MJ Biz Daily.
So while you hear about all this, why don't we just give the craft brewers an excise tax break?
Because they were screaming for it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Welcome to government.
Yeah. One of the documents included in the briefing note, drafted by an official within the Department of Finance Canada's tax policy branch, updates Freeland on the financial state of Canada's adult use market. According to the report, it remains the case that after 5 years of legalization, there are no licensed producers of legal cannabis products that are consistently profitable.
No kidding. That's not a surprise. The briefing note titled, sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, let's give the breweries a tax break.
Sure. So. That leads to more hospitalizations, which means more money, right? Government funds. The briefing note titled Update on Financial Distress in Cannabis Production Industry documents a litany of issues that are facing the sector, including unfair profits earned by some provincially owned cannabis wholesalers, go figure, snowballing of unpaid excise taxes by the cannabis producers. There's almost no sustainable profits earned by cannabis companies. There is a disproportionate number of cannabis producers entering creditor protection and even bankruptcy. And there is a falling prices, which made worse by inventory liquidations by companies that go under.
A separate memorandum marked secret was sent to the Minister of Finance and was almost entirely redacted. The financial distress briefing note came amid the industry's lobbying efforts to ease taxes levied against cannabis producers.
Yeah, industry group Cannabis Council of Canada told MJ Biz Daily that it had briefed officials at the Department of Finance Canada and Health Canada many times about the lopsidedness in cannabis taxes and regulations, but had very limited success. It's the federal government's model. Over and over, we've suggested so many ways to fix this. Lowering the tax rate, fixing the clumsy excise stamp administration, removing taxes for patients, and more. Rick Savone, Cannabis Council chair, said when he was asked to comment on the briefing materials.
And he says, the federal government's design of the program is flawed on so many levels, but it's their own design. Maybe the next federal budget will finally acknowledge our industry's financial struggles by delivering concrete actions, as Minister Freeland has done recently for other regulated industries.
I wonder if he's making reference to the craft beer industry.
Maybe.
And not to pick on the craft beer industry, but
it's
it's
not their
just
fault.
such a lopsided favoring,
Yeah, this is all directed at the government.
Right. The briefing note said that dried cannabis, which represents majority market share, is still subject to excise duties of $1 Canadian 74 per gram, or 10% of the wholesale price, whichever is higher. The report acknowledges, however, that in practice, the 10% rate rarely applies. That might be the first time the government acknowledged the excise tax is usually $1 per gram of dried cannabis, which is generally much higher than 10% of the wholesale price.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if the average gram is only $5 or $6, that's only 50 or 60 cents at the 10% level, but they have to pay $1 because it's whatever's more.
That's right.
Yeah. The report to Freeland shows that Canada's cannabis producers increasingly are falling behind on their federal excise tax obligations. Federal licensed cannabis producers owed the CRA $279 million as of June 30th, according to the report.
Yeah, the federal report went into a lot more detail than has been released to the public, noting that as of June 2023, 83 businesses had a tax debt of less than $1 million Canadian. Collectively, they owed $34.1 million. 40 businesses had a tax debt of between $1 million and $5 million. Collectively, they owed $67.7 million. 9 businesses had a tax debt of $5 million to $10 million, collectively owing more than $29 million. 16 businesses had a tax debt of more than $10 million, and collectively they owed more than $99.8 million.
Wow, that's like almost 150 businesses that are in trouble.
Yeah.
Says sequent and unrelated to the briefing materials, Canada's tax collection agency followed through on a threat to garnish cash from some licensed cannabis producers delinquent on their excise duty payments. The move was a major escalation in the CRA's efforts to collect excise debt. Days later, cannabis firm Bazam was granted regulatory protection for massive unpaid tax bills.
The briefing materials for Freeland also acknowledged the disproportionate number of cannabis companies that have filed for creditor protection. And you can't blame them for filing for it. I mean, you cannot expect a fish to climb a tree and then punish it because it didn't,
Yeah.
In addition, 14 cannabis companies filed for creditor protection in 2022 under the Companies Creditor Arrangement Act, representing 36% of all CCAA filings last year. Another 12 companies have filed a concern with the Office of Superintendent of Bankruptcy in 2023, which includes receivership, creditor protection under the CCAA, and bankruptcies, the report notes.
In the report to Freeland, the government acknowledges that so-called inventory liquidations are affecting the broader market by driving down overall prices. And the report says that one consequence of the firms going out of business has been the discount selling of the remaining stock to other producers and wholesale retailers. And this is further driving down cannabis prices and keeping more viable product stagnating in inventory.
It goes on to say this will likely deepen the financial struggles of other firms still operating in the legal market. Well, of course it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous. The federal report notes that some provincial governments are extracting more profit from the cannabis industry than expected, while almost no consistent profit is earned in the private sector. Provincial governments receive money from the cannabis industry mainly in 2 ways. Most provinces signed coordinated cannabis taxation agreements in which the federal government collects the cannabis excise tax and redistributes roughly 3/4 of it back to provincial coffers. And then the second way is through province-owned wholesalers, or in Quebec's case, province-owned retail stores.
As we know, here in Ontario, we have the OCS. The OCS is one, if not the largest cannabis profitable companies in the country. plus Ontario not only gets that, but they also get their share of that 3/4 of the money that comes back to the provinces.
Right? Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's right. They get they get a little bit of both of that stuff. Yep. The report notes that beyond the federal administration excise duty, cannabis authorities involved in the wholesale distribution and retail cannabis products continue to strongly perform in large part due to the monopoly buying and price setting power. The report cites New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec as operating provincially owned cannabis wholesalers whose profits from the industry matched or exceeded the revenues received from the excise duty.
Right. So that's what you were just saying about our OCS.
Yeah, read the next line.
Yeah, it says, in fact, most profitable cannabis businesses in Canada are entirely owned by provincial governments. How fucking disgusting is that? And there's where we need explicit language needs to be back on the screen. But that it's disgusting. It's disgusting. The federal report concludes this is equivalent to a near or actual doubling of the $1 per gram excise duty in these provinces. So when you're buying from your local dispensary, you are actually giving the government most of the money, not the grower, not the seller, not the producer, not the packager, not the person who's standing in front of you selling it to you, but to the government who's trying to fuck you.
The lots of money going to the government. There's no doubt about that. And this looks like more of it's going to the provincial government than anything because of their owning their business. Plus, they get that big chunk from the federal government. So these profits are beyond what was envisioned in the CCTAs, which was for margins and markups to be reasonable and only cover operating costs and capital expenses, and to generate a normal state of return comparable to what would be expected in the private sector. When Canada's federal government releases a report for 2024-2025 fiscal year in mid-April, industry stakeholders will be watching for signs of potential excise tax relief.
Yeah. In its report in advance of the 2024 federal budget, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance proposed adjusting the excise duty formula for cannabis. The committee wants the excise duty changed so that it's limited to a 10% ad valorem rate, meaning 10% of the value of a transaction, which would amount to a substantial reduction in excise payments in most cases.
There you go. Yeah, struggling, no doubt about that. But when you read that story, so well, time to hear from our sponsors and for us to take a break. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
I need a
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And welcome back to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and cvgtv.com. And Irene, we've got, let's see, we got that hash story coming up. And we got one here. We just had the one before the break about the debts and struggling and all that stuff in the cannabis industry. Now, I don't know whether this next headline deals with Canada or the U.S. I'll find out. But here we go. From Muggleheads, Trulieve sues the former CFO over using vast sum of money cash for personal luxuries.
And you know what? I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. I also don't think this is an isolated case. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this. Just because of some of the shit that we've seen in the industry in the last 5 years. In this particular case, Trulieve, a former chief financial officer of Trulieve Cannabis Corp., has become the target of a lawsuit after allegedly spending up to $400,000 US of company funds on luxurious personal expenses. Sources reported this week that Alex D'Amico visited Legoland, bought new glasses from Pearl Vision, went clothes shopping at high-end retailers, and a variety of other things while fudging the numbers to try and make it look like business-related expenses. This is
He not only went on a shopping spree with his company credit card,
yeah,
but then tried to seek reimbursements through the company's expense management system. Really? D'Amico served as Trulieve's CFO between 2020 and June of last year when he resigned over the company becoming aware of his actions. So you put it on the company credit card, and then you try to get your money back that wasn't even your money on top of that. Wow, this guy's really got it, doesn't he? Throughout his tenure as CFO, D'Amico surreptitiously acted as though his position entitled him to raid the corporate coffers to finance his personal largesses as if it were his own personal slush fund, the lawsuit says. His actions are particularly egregious in light of his position as chief financial officer.
Yeah, I mean, the guy really, he was in a position of trust and respect, and he really blew it. It was just outrageous what he did. He's also been accused of using thousands of Trulieve's dollars to pay his personal attorney's retainer. Furthermore, he allegedly spent $24,000 on some sort of executive training program that he was never authorized for. Mr. D'Amico engaged in conduct that was inconsistent with the company's policies and procedures by both submitting expense reimbursements for personal expenses, as well as utilizing corporate credit cards for personal expenses. Trulieve said in a financial report last fall prior to the lawsuit.
Tim Mullaney abruptly left his role with Trulieve for personal reasons shortly after he started in July. He is now working as a financial firm, Tide Rock, and Mullaney served as a CFO for the fast food chain Jack in the Box. The company's vice president of finance, Ryan Bless, stepped in as the interim CFO prior to Wes Getman taking the role in January.
Cannabis is an exciting and dynamic industry, and Trulieve is incredibly well positioned for the coming wave of growth catalysts, Getman said. He's had an extensive career in finance. Trulieve just opened 2 new pot shops in its home state of Florida, and they are located in Pinellas Park and Palm Beach. The company opened 17 dispensaries last year and now has 194 locations throughout the U.S.
Wow, you got your hand in the jar twice.
Well, if you're going to do it right.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's really disturbing that unfortunately, the world is full of people like this. And this is why we have to be aware of these things, right?
Yeah. All righty. On to our next story. And this one is coming to us from Psych Post, and the headline on it says psychedelic mushroom extract may offer enhanced brain benefits over synthetic psilocybin.
I have to say, for me, this is just a given. Anything natural versus chemically reproduced is better, in my opinion. But that's my own humble opinion. However, this study kind of backs me up a bit. In recent years, the scientific community has turned its attention back to the potential of psychedelics as therapeutic agents, with psilocybin, a naturally occurring substance found in certain mushrooms, at the forefront of this research. A new study published in the Journal of Molecular Psychiatry suggests possible benefits of using psilocybin-containing mushroom extract over its chemically synthesized counterpart for the treatment of psychiatric disorders such as depression, PTSD, obsessive-compulsive disorders, and anxiety. My colleagues and I are very interested in the potential of psychedelics to treat serious treatment-resistant psychiatric disorders such as the depression, the PTSD, OCD, and even schizophrenia, said author Bernard Lehrer, a professor of psychiatry and director of the Hadassah Brain Lab Center for Psychedelic Research at Hebrew University.
There was a doctor in one of the videos that I used to show when I was doing a cannabis educational documentary series. And in one of the videos, one of the doctors says, I've never had a patient tell me that they preferred the chemical made THC over the plant-based one.
Right.
That's right.
It's just a given. Go natural. Go natural.
There are many anecdotal and clinical reports which suggest that extract of psilocybin-containing mushrooms may have unique effects that are qualitatively and quantitatively different from chemical psilocybin, and also some preclinical studies. This observation was important clinical implications, and we wanted to test its empirically in a laboratory study. How our clinical trial, current clinical research predominantly utilizes chemically synthesized versions of psilocybin. However, psilocybin-containing mushrooms contain complex mixtures of psychoactive and non-psychoactive compounds that could synergistically influence their therapeutic effects. Sounds like cannabis. Jeez. This phenomenon, known as the entourage effect, suggests that the therapeutic potential of a psychedelic substance may not solely be due to its primary active ingredient, but also to the contribution of other compounds present in the natural source.
Yes, it does.
Jeez.
It's very much like cannabis.
It
That
sure
entourage
is.
effect is huge, right? And again, this is why natural takes precedence over anything that's chemically synthesized. The entourage effect is a concept that was previously recognized in cannabis research, where the combined action of cannabinoids and other compounds in the plant is believed to produce more significant therapeutic effects than any single compound alone. Now, by comparing the effects of naturally derived mushroom extracts to those of the chemically synthesized psilocybin, the researchers sought to uncover whether the presence of these additional compounds in the extract could offer benefits not observed with psilocybin alone. The research was conducted using adult male mice, and I'm not going to C57BL/6J mice. Okay. Divided into groups, receiving either the mushroom extract or the chemically synthesized psilocybin, or a control saline solution. Both forms of psilocybin were administered at dose designed to be therapeutically relevant based on equivalent dosing models between mice and humans.
To assess the immediate behavior effects and potential neuroplasticity induced by psilocybin, the researchers employed the head twitch response assay, a well-established method for studying the acute effects of psychedelics in mice. Additionally, the study delved deeper into the biochemical and molecular changes potentially underpinning the therapeutic effects of psilocybin. This included analyzing the expression levels of specific proteins in the brain, which serve as markers for neuroplasticity, and conducting metabolomic analysis to explore broader metabolic changes to the frontal cortex following treatment.
So basically what they've said here in a whole lot of really big words is they're looking at how these molecules activate on the synaptics of the brain. This can lead to a whole lot of more studies, I believe. When examining the effects on synaptic protein levels, this is a proxy for neuroplastic changes associated with long-term therapeutic benefits, in particular things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. Okay. The researchers found significant differences. The levels of certain synaptic proteins, such as the GAP43 or the PSD95, a synaptophysin, and SV2A, were more pronouncedly increased in various brain regions by the mushroom extract compared to the synthesized psilocybin. This is really good news.
Yeah, these proteins are crucial for synaptic growth, development, and plasticity, suggesting that mushroom extracts may promote a more robust neuroplastic response than psilocybin alone. This finding is particularly relevant in the therapeutic context, as enhanced neuroplasticity is believed to underlie the long-term effects of psilocybin treatment for psychiatric disorders. Furthermore, the metabolomic analysis revealed distinct metabolic changes in the frontal cortex of mice treated with the mushroom extract versus those given synthesized psilocybin or a controlled solution. The analysis identified specific metabolic pathways that were differentially affected by the mushroom's extract, including those involved in purine metabolism, arginine and proline metabolism, and others.
Yes. Ultimately, these changes suggest that the mushroom extract induces a unique metabolic state in the brain, which could contribute to its therapeutic effects. Notably, the presence of additional compounds in the mushroom extract beyond psilocybin itself might be responsible for the distinct metabolic and protein expression in these patterns, hinting at a complex entourage effect where multiple components act synergistically. Our findings need to be confirmed in human studies, but they do suggest that there may be therapeutic advantages to psilocybin containing mushroom extract over chemically synthesized psilocybin when both are administered at the same psilocybin dose, Lair told PsyPost.
Interesting, the researchers observed that both the mushroom extract and the synthesized psilocybin induced the head twitch response in mice, and there was no notable difference in the behavior response between the two treatments. This finding indicates that at a basic behavioral level, the acute effects of the substances are similar. We were surprised by the fact that there was no differences in the acute effect on the head twitch response between chemical psilocybin and psilocybin-containing mushroom extract, while the differences emerged in terms of longer effects on synaptic routines and metabolomics. This is an important potential clinical relevance.
Yes.
I'm just going to look here. It looks like this keeps going on for quite a ways. So by the looks of it, we've pretty well covered quite a bit of the story to say that the extract is doing a much better job than the synthesized psilocybin.
Absolutely. So the study is effect of chemically synthesized psilocybin and psychedelic mushroom extract on molecular and metabolic profiles in the mouse brain. They can find that. Just look it up online. Just look for the study of effect of chemically synthesized psilocybin. It's a fascinating line of research. It has a lot of very important clinical implications for sure.
Yeah. All righty. On to our next story. This one comes to us from StratCan. Headline says, Ontario Chamber of Commerce calls on province to modernize cannabis sector.
To modernize the cannabis sector. Interesting. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce has called on the province to modernize the Ontario cannabis market as part of its 2024 provincial budget submission. The Chamber's annual budget submission makes numerous recommendations as part of Ontario's budget consultation process on how to strengthen Ontario's business community, including 3 key points that relate specifically to the legal cannabis sector.
The Chamber calls for changing provincial regulations to allow licensed producers and retailers to have a direct relationship, to pursue lost tax revenue from underground markets by creating tougher penalties for non-compliance, coupled with intensified audits, and calling on the Ontario Cannabis Retail Store to provide quarterly updates on its progress around the 16 recommendations in the Auditor General's Value for Money audit report that was released in December of 2021.
Yeah, these 16 recommendations include a call for more structured, consistent, and transparent approach to its product listing calls and product listing selections, improving transparency about the product delisting process, improving customer service, and numerous calls for greater oversight of its distribution partner, Domain Logistics. There was a cyber attack in 2022 on the parent company of the OCS, Ontario Cannabis Stores, third-party operated distribution center, Domain Logistics, briefly crippled the cannabis distribution system in Ontario.
The Auditor General's 2023 report revisited those 16 recommendations, noting that 79% had been fulfilled and 13% were in the process of being fulfilled. Only 3% showed little progress, while 5% were no longer relevant. The 2 recommendations that showed little to no progress were a call to explore tools such as Ontario's digital identity program to strengthen controls over online ordering of cannabis by individuals under the age of 19. The report also says that the OCRC has not determined Dominion Logistics is to incorporate more extended data retention requirements into all subcontractor agreements. What is that? Age gate not preventing minors from getting in? How could that be?
Well, yeah, and so they want to do something about the age gate, but they're also saying that the OCRC, that's the Ontario Cannabis Retail thing, it's not required Domain Logistics to incorporate more extended data retention requirements into all of its subcontractor agreements. Okay, so the information isn't being relayed to subcontractors, which is part of the problem. So, however, the OCRC informed the Auditor General that its privacy and freedom of the information team is planning to perform a privacy impact assessment to determine appropriate data retention requirements and plans to implement these recommendations by March of this year. So they want more information from us as purchasers, and they want the permission they want legal right to retain that information, even though they were hacked.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to the OCS. I went to the OCS online one time, and that's because that's the only place I could find our friend Remo's supercharger.
Oh, yeah, right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, it's the only time I've gone to OCS online, because I'm not thrilled with how they're operating things, and I don't want to support something that I disagree with. I will go to the local stores, which, they get their stuff from the OCS.
Yeah.
I will go because I am supporting a store that's owned by somebody I'm supporting a store in my community. But I won't, and again, I grow your own.
Yeah, yeah. And don't forget the OCS.
Share it with your friend.
Yeah. The OCS uses an out-of-country location in order to retain your data too.
How disturbing is that, right? And our tax dollars are paying for that. Our cannabis tax dollars are paying for that.
They only make millions and millions a year. They're one of the largest companies, as I said. They just can't afford to keep it here in Canada, I guess. So.
Cause me a breakdown, Al. Where's my there we go. Okay, I'm good.
All right, we better get on to the next story, because this one's probably just going to get you just upset. And this one comes to us from CBC. The headline there says that more than half of P.E.I.'s impaired driving charges this year have been for cannabis.
Oh, for crying out loud. Did we not just do a story saying that nationwide there is no evidence to substantiate the claims of cannabis impaired driving nationwide? Okay, but let's go down to the East Coast, and RCMP on P.E.I. have charged 36 people for impaired driving. So that's where everybody got charged for it, Al. They're the only ones in Canada driving so far in 2024, and alcohol wasn't the only cause of impairment. In fact, the majority of those arrests were related to cannabis use. I call bullshit. 19 of the 36 charges laid since the start date of the year related to driving under the influence of cannabis. Okay, you know what? These tests have really got to get better, because it's that whole thing. If you're looking for a yellow car, you'll find one. If you're not, you'll never see one, right? So these guys are looking to say, hey, you're cannabis. I can smell it, or whatever. But I call bullshit.
Yeah. Okay. Corporal Gavin Moore, who speaks for the RCMP on P.E.I., said impaired drivers are stopped by both regular officers and specialized officers in the traffic unit. Just like alcohol, cannabis can impair coordination, they say, reaction time, and decision-making skills needed for safe driving, he says.
There may be indicators of intoxication by cannabis, Moore said, and this could be fresh smoke, this could be product, this could be watery eyes. During the first week of March, 4 of 6 impaired drivers were charged for cannabis use, with all 4 failing a roadside test. The following weekend, P.E.I. RCMP charged 2 more drug-impaired drivers.
Officers have roadside screening devices for cannabis. This is an instrument where the officers will make a demand and take a sample of saliva from the inside of the cheek of the driver, which has been coming under question at times. If the test indicates a high level of THC, the primary psychoactive in cannabis, an officer can demand a blood test, which is what ultimately be advised is evidence of impairment. So, like, I get up first thing in the morning, I'll never ever test not impaired because of being a patient. You consume daily. It sits in their blood system for months on end.
That's right. So, I mean, again, these are things that need to be changed. According to the Criminal Code of Canada, the minimum threshold for cannabis impairment while driving is 2 nanograms of THC per millimeter of blood, with 5 nanograms constituting a more serious offense. In 2023, P.E.I. RCMP laid 76 cannabis impaired investigations out of a total of 230 impaired driving charges.
The driver's method of consumption of the drug varies, but Moore said most arrests involve people smoking it. We've had a number of training tools that have been provided to police in recent years, in particular with regards to cannabis.
Karen Clinton is president of Charlottetown and Eastern P.E.I chapters of MAD, Canada, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And she said whether a driver is consuming cannabis through smoking, vaping, or edibles, the effect is the same. I think Karen needs an education. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Impaired is impaired, Clinton said. Oh, will you go home and have your glass or bottle of wine?
Yeah. In the PEI legislature earlier this month, Soares Elmira, MIA, and trained paramedic Robin Crocher asked Justice and Public Safety Minister Boyce Thompson how law enforcement is adapting to meet the rising threat of drug-impaired driving. Crocher said that impaired driving continues to be a menace on our communities, as too often as deadly consequences.
In response, Thompson said there will be 2 new members added to the RCMP's traffic unit to focus on impaired driving across the island, as well as a year-long anti-impaired driving campaign rather than the usual holiday season one. But the minister said he's looking at other ways to combat the issue.
Throwing bigger fines and more incarceration isn't addressing the core problems. Maybe you have to take an upstream approach with education. Maybe there has to be other wraparound services. If you're caught, maybe you go to an impaired driving boot camp or something like that. Oof. Liberal MLA Gord McNeely also indicated he'll be presenting a private member's bill this session to look into investing some of the government's $25 million in revenue from liquor sales back into prevention.
They say the real issue is about harm reduction and health promotion. We are failing as a province to do these 2 things properly and educate people. I think the big thing starts with education, my friends. Yeah. There are no national guidelines. Unlike alcohol, where people can estimate their level of impairment based on how many drinks they've consumed, a driver's ability to assess impairment by cannabis can be challenging.
National guidelines say that frequency of use, method of consumption, and THC levels all influence how impaired someone can be. As a result, there is no guidance to drivers about how much cannabis can be consumed before it is unsafe to drive, or how long a driver should wait to drive after consuming it. Unless you have a home blood test that you trust through and through, it's a very difficult thing to judge, Moore says. As with alcohol, we would tell anybody, if you're going to consume these products, then make alternative plans for transportation.
Yeah, I mean, Clinton says, like alcohol, the effects of cannabis can also change based on a person's physical size and the familiarity with the substance. As we know, I mean, a longtime consumer is not going to have the euphoria that a brand new consumer does, right?
Yeah.
Now, he goes on to say a lot of people believe that cannabis is a safer option as compared to alcohol, for example, because you're a lot calmer, says Clinton. They think, well, that means that I'm just going to drive slower or be a lot more cautious on the road.
But Clinton says because it reduces alertness, alters depth perception, and impairs concentration, it can lead to a crash. She says one way people can keep roads safer is by not posting on social media to warn potential impaired drivers about police checkpoints.
Yeah, quit ratting us out. Yeah, that's gonna happen. You can help by stop ratting us out. You know, you may think that you're saving your friends a couple of minutes of inconvenience, but you can't tell who's impaired and who's not, she says. When the information is made available to impaired drivers, the impaired driver continues to drive on the road in the same communities that you're driving in, that your family members are driving in. Now, you know what, Al? I don't want to sound like a dipwad here saying that I'm against dealing with impaired driving. What I am against is the current state of testing for cannabis related in driving. I don't want to see a kid who's brand new to the industry, 19, 20 years old, coming out of college, grabbing his first joint and getting behind the wheel. But a longtime patient such as yourself, let's say you've been consuming for, let's say, 30 plus years. You are a medical patient. You would have to go 90 days, refrain from using your medicine for 90 days before you could potentially pass one of these current tests. So they're not fair. And until they have tests that test for things like Oxycontin
Well,
or methamphetamines or LSD, until they have those, the cannabis test should not be valid.
yeah, there are some of the I believe the saliva tests also test for other drugs as well. But yeah, there's a lot of drugs that they don't test for. So
And how
just so you
many
know, we got a
people are on
message.
back pain medication?
We got a message. We got a message from Cali Girl C. Says, hello, thank you for the content.
Well, thank you for tuning in, Cali Girl Seeds.
That's right. That's
Much
right.
appreciated. And you know what? We're
Okay.
going to talk about something a little more interesting and a lot more fun and a lot less testy for Irene's tolerance.
Yeah, that's right. Because we're off to Morocco. There we go. Morocco celebrates huge cannabis harvest legally for the first time. This comes to us from.
You know what? I love that picture, Al. Like I just want to melt into that picture. Morocco's first legal cannabis harvest fest was 294 metric tons in 2023 after the country approved its cultivation and export for medicine and industrial uses, the cannabis regulator has said. Now, the harvest was made by 32 cooperatives that brought together 430 farmers covering 277 hectares in northern Rif mountain areas of Al Hoceima, Tuanut, and Chefchaouen. They do, and Ratcliffe.
This is going to be fun. The United Nations Drug Agency says about 47,000 hectares of the Rif are devoted to cannabis output, roughly a third of the amount of 2003 after government crackdowns. This year, the regulatory is examining applications by 1,500 farmers who organize themselves into 130 cooperatives, ANRAC says.
Yes. Cultivation of the local drought-enduring landrace known as Bolidia began this month. Although Morocco is a major cannabis producer, officially cannabis use for recreational purposes is illegal. In practice, it's tolerated. Nearly 1 million people live in the areas of northern Morocco where cannabis is the main economic activity. It has been publicly grown and smoked there for generations, mixed with tobacco in traditional long-stemmed pipes with clay bowls.
Tobacco. The legalization was intended to improve the farmers' incomes and protect them from drug traffickers who dominate the cannabis trade and export it legally. So far, 2 legal cannabis transformation units have been operating, and 2 others are waiting for equipment, while 15 cannabis producers are in the process of being authorized for medical use. Morocco is also seeking to tap into the growing global market for legal cannabis and awarded 54 export permits last year.
Right. Well, you know, Al, we're running out of time here, and I've just scrolled down because it's a rather long article.
Yeah.
So I've just scrolled down, and basically they are doing something with Germany, becomes the 9th country to legalize recreational use.
Yeah, they did. Germany
I don't know how
did
we
it
went
as
from.
well.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we went from Morocco to Germany, but we did, and that's how long this story is. From what I understand, these guys got a crap load of weed. One of the newest strains to look for if you're looking for something from Morocco is Bolidia. What did I pronounce that properly? I'm looking for the name of that again.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so it's a new strain that's out there. Give it a try. Comes from Morocco, and they've got a huge harvest, so it should be available here in Canada soon.
All righty. I also see that we're out of time.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll get to this other story maybe another time. That was Las Vegas marijuana consumption lounges prepare for a new era. It's always good to hear about lounges
because
opening
they're
up.
opening in Vegas. Anybody going to Vegas, you've got to go to one of these lounges and get us some video footage. We will put you live, or we'll just take your footage if that's all you. If you don't want to be live, that's fine too. But if you're going to one of these consumption lounges, please contact cbgtv.com so that we can get some live footage.
It'd be cool. All right, from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thanks to Legacy420.com, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and you, our viewers. Thanks for tuning in. Catch the next broadcast this coming Thursday with Glenn and I. Same place, same channel, all that stuff. And don't forget to educate, medicate, do not incarcerate. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.